Ambassador Krixval had served the Zithrani Collective for 47 cycles. He had met species from every corner of the galaxy. He had seen wonders and horrors in equal measure. But nothing had prepared him for humans. The stories about them spread through every trading post and diplomatic hall. They were said to be mad. They kept predators as companions and called them pets. They consumed poisons for fun and called them spices. They broke their own bones and laughed about it later. Every species had their own collection of human stories, and each tale was more impossible than the last. Krixval had always thought the stories were exaggerated. Surely no species could be that strange. Surely the tales had grown with each telling. He believed this right up until the moment he met Captain Chun. Station Oryx 7 was a small outpost at the edge of Zithrani space. It served as a rest stop for traders and a temporary home for refugees fleeing the border conflicts. The station was old and tired, its systems held together by hope and constant repair. 3,000 souls lived within its metal walls, most of them families who had lost everything and were waiting for transport to safer worlds. Krixval was the station's administrator. It was not a glamorous post, but he took pride in keeping these people safe. He'd given 30 cycles of his life to this station. He knew every corridor, every maintenance shaft, every face. These were his people. Even if they were only passing through, the human freighter arrived without warning. It was an ugly ship, covered in patches and scars from countless repairs. The name painted on its side read Rusty Bucket, which Krixval found both confusing and slightly insulting. Did humans name their vessels after garbage? The ship requested docking permission. Krixval granted it, as he did for all traders. The station needed supplies, and human merchants were known for carrying rare goods. He went to the docking bay himself to greet the newcomers. Diplomacy required personal attention, even for simple traders. The airlock opened with a hiss of pressurized air. A human woman stepped out, followed by a small group of crew members. The woman was of average height by human standards, which made her short compared to Krixval's own species. Her hair was gray and cut close to her head. Her face was lined with age, and her eyes were the color of cooling metal. She wore a battered jacket covered in patches and burns. She looked around the docking bay, scratched the back of her neck, and let out a long breath. "Station looks like it's held together with spit and prayers," she said to no one in particular. Her voice was rough, like stones grinding together. One of her crew members, a young human male with dark skin and a bright smile, laughed at this. "Better than the last station captain. Remember that place tried to charge us for breathing?" "I remember shooting their docking clamps," the woman replied. "Good times." Krixval approached them carefully. Humans could be unpredictable, and this one looked like she had seen more than her share of trouble. He raised his 4 arms in the traditional Zithrani greeting of peace. "Welcome to Station Oryx 7, he said. "I am Ambassador Krixval, administrator of this facility. How may we assist you?" The woman looked at him with those metal gray eyes. There was no hostility in her gaze, but no warmth either. Just a flat, measuring look that made Krixval feel like cargo being assessed for value. "Name's Chun," she said. "Captain of the Rusty Bucket. We need fuel, food, and somewhere to sleep that doesn't smell like engine grease. Oh, and coffee. Mostly coffee. Where can I get decent coffee on this station?" Krixval blinked all 4 of his eyes in confusion. "Coffee? I am not certain we have—" An alarm cut through the air. Red lights began flashing along the corridor walls. Krixval felt his hearts, all 3 of them, begin to race. That alarm meant only one thing. He pulled out his communication device and connected to the station's command center. "Report. What is happening?" The voice that answered was trembling with fear. "Ambassador, long-range sensors have detected a fleet approaching. 17 ships. They are broadcasting Vorath identification codes. The world seemed to stop around Krixval. The Vorath. Of all the horrors in the galaxy, the Vorath were among the worst. They were an ancient species, cruel and powerful. They did not conquer worlds for territory or resources. They conquered worlds for food. The Vorath consumed sentient beings. They hunted intelligent species across the stars, treating them as nothing more than livestock. And now 17 of their warships were coming here, to this station, to the 3,000 souls under Krixval's protection. How long until they arrive? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. 6 hours, Ambassador. Maybe less. Krixval lowered his communication device. His limbs felt weak. The station's defense grid was old and poorly maintained. They had no military vessels, no weapons capable of fighting off a single Vorath ship, let alone 17. They were going to die. Everyone on this station was going to die, or worse, be taken alive. He turned to Captain Chun. Perhaps the humans would help. Perhaps their legendary madness included a willingness to fight impossible battles. Captain Chun, he said, his voice cracking with desperation. There are 17 Vorath warships approaching this station. The Vorath are— I know what the Vorath are, Chun interrupted. She did not look concerned. She did not look afraid. She looked bored. Nasty bugs. Eat people. Real unpleasant. They will be here in 6 hours, Krixval continued. They will kill everyone on this station. Or take them for harvesting. Chun stared at him for a long moment. Then she turned to her crew member. Hey, Taurus, we got any contracts in Vorath space? The young man checked the device on his wrist. No, Captain. We don't do business with the bugs, so not our problem then. Chun turned back to Krixval with a shrug. Sorry, friend. We'll be undocking before they get here. Good luck with the whole invasion thing. Now, seriously, where can I get some coffee? Krixval stood frozen in shock as Captain Chun walked past him, heading deeper into the station. Her crew followed behind her, chatting among themselves as if nothing was wrong, as if 3,000 people were not about to die. He had heard that humans were terrifying. He had never imagined that their most terrifying trait would be simply not caring. The next 5 hours were the worst of Krixval's life. He coordinated evacuation procedures that he knew would fail. He sent distress calls to the Galactic Council fleet, but they were hours away, too far to arrive in time. He tried to calm the refugees, to give them hope, but he could see in their eyes that they knew the truth. Death was coming, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. The Vorath fleet drew closer with each passing minute. Station sensors showed their ships in terrible detail. They were massive vessels, built for war and terror. Their hulls were decorated with the bones of their victims. Some ships had entire skeletons mounted on their exteriors, grim trophies from past hunts. The Vorath believed that displaying their kills gave them power over their prey. Krixval tried one last time to contact Captain Chun. He found her in the station's small cafeteria, sitting alone at a table in the corner. She had found coffee somewhere. A large cup of dark liquid sat in front of her, steam rising from its surface. She held the cup in both hands and stared at nothing in particular. Captain Chun, Krixval said, approaching her table. Please, I'm begging you. Your ship has weapons. Your crew has combat experience. Even a small distraction might give some of our people time to escape. Chun took a long sip of her coffee. Not my cargo, not my problem, she said. Station politics, alien invasions, none of that has anything to do with me. I'm just a trader trying to make a living. There are children on this station, Krixval said. His voice broke on the last word. Families. People who have already lost everything. The Vorath will not show them mercy. They will be eaten alive. Chun's expression did not change. Life's hard. Galaxy's cruel. Everyone knows that. She took another sip of coffee. I've got 11 crew members depending on me. I can't throw their lives away for strangers. That's just how it is. Krixval wanted to argue more. He wanted to shake this human and demand that she help. But he could see in her eyes that she had made her decision. There was no changing her mind. He turned and walked away, despair settling over him like a heavy blanket. The Vorath arrived. Ahead of scheduled dot, their fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the station's sensor range. Then they came forward slowly, deliberately, like predators savoring the fear of trapped prey. The lead ship was the largest Krixval had ever seen, a massive warship covered in bones and dark metal. It broadcast a message on all frequencies. "Attention, Station Oryx 7, the message said. The voice was wet and clicking, translated into common tongue by automatic systems. You are now property of the Vorath Dominion. Your biological mass will be harvested for sustenance. Resistance will result in increased suffering. Surrender now, and your deaths will be relatively quick." Some of the refugees tried to escape. 3 small pods launched from the station, packed with families desperate to flee. They had no weapons, no defenses. They were simply trying to run. The Vorath destroyed them without hesitation. Plasma fire from the nearest warship turned all 3 pods into expanding clouds of debris. Krixval watched on the command center screens as 217 lives ended in an instant. He heard screaming in the corridors outside. He heard crying. His legs gave out. He sank to the floor of the command center, his 4 eyes staring at nothing. It was over. There was no hope left. The Vorath would board the station soon, and then everyone would die. The door to the command center opened. Captain Chun walked in. She looked different now. The bored, detached expression was gone from her face. Something had replaced it. Something hard and sharp and very, very angry. Her gray eyes were no longer the color of cooling metal. They were the color of a blade being drawn from its sheath. "Those escape pods," she said. Her voice was quiet, controlled, dangerous. "Those were unarmed ships. They were running away." Krixval looked up at her. "Yes, the Vorath find fear. They say it improves the taste. They prefer their prey to be terrified before children," Chun interrupted. "Were there children on those pods?" Yes, 37 children were among the passengers." Chun closed her eyes. She stood very still for a long moment. Her hands, hanging at her sides, slowly curled into fists. Krixval watched as something changed in the human woman. It was like watching a star ignite. One moment there was cold emptiness. The next moment there was fire. "Torres," Chun said, speaking into a device on her wrist. "Get the crew to the ship. We're undocking." Krixval felt his heart sink. She was leaving. Despite everything, she was still running away. "I understand," he said, his voice hollow. "Safe travels, Captain." "I hope you escaped before." "We're not leaving," Chun said. She opened her eyes and looked at him. The fire in her gaze made Krixval take a step backward. "We're going out there. Those bugs just made this my problem. But you said—" "I know what I said." Chun turned and walked toward the door. "I say a lot of things. Most of it's nonsense. But there are lines, Ambassador. There are things that cross a line. And those things—" She paused at the doorway and looked back at him. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with a fury that Krixval had never seen in any species before. "Those things I take personally." She walked out. A few minutes later, the rusty bucket undocked from Station Oryx 7. The battered, patched-up freighter turned toward the Vorath fleet and began to accelerate. Krixval watched from the command center, unable to look away. The freighter was heading directly towards 17 warships. It was suicide. It was madness. It was human. The rusty bucket flew toward the Varith fleet like a stone thrown at a mountain. On the station sensors, it looked impossibly small against the massive warships. Krixval watched with his heart pounding in his chest. He did not understand what Captain Chen was planning. He did not understand how one damaged freighter could possibly make any difference. Then the freighter began broadcasting. The signal went out on all frequencies, overwhelming every communication channel in the sector. At first, Krixval thought it was a distress call or surrender message. Then he heard the music. It was human music. Loud, aggressive, filled with screaming voices and harsh instruments. The rhythm was fast and violent, like the heartbeat of some angry beast. Krixval had never heard anything like it. The sound filled the command center, drowning out the cries of fear from the corridors outside. The Varith fleet commander responded immediately. His wet, clicking voice cut through the music. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself. You are interfering with a sanctioned harvest. Stand down or be destroyed." Captain Chun's voice came back over the same channel. She sounded calm, almost cheerful. "This is Captain Chun of the Rusty Bucket. I'm here to inform you that you've made a serious mistake. You are one ship," the Varith commander said. "We are 17. You are nothing." "That's true," Chun replied. "I'm just one ship. But here's the thing about humans, Bug. We're not very smart. We don't know when to quit. And we really, really don't like it when people hurt kids." The lead Varith warship opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked through space toward the freighter. Krixval watched in horror, certain that he was about to see the ship torn apart, but the rusty bucket moved. It twisted and rolled through space with a grace that seemed impossible for such an ugly vessel. The plasma bolts missed by narrow margins. The freighter kept coming, accelerating instead of retreating. "Torres, how's our cargo looking?" Chen's voice came over an open channel. She had not closed her communication line. Everyone could hear her. 14,000 tons of industrial mining explosives, Captain," Torres replied. He sounded excited, eager, all armed and ready to go. "Perfect. Ramirez, you see that big ugly ship in front?" A female voice answered. "The flagship? Hard to miss it, Captain. Looks like someone glued a skeleton to a brick. That's our target. Get us into their hangar bay." "Into there? Captain, that's insane." "Probably. Do it anyway." The rusty bucket dove toward the Varith flagship. More plasma fire erupted from the enemy fleet, but the freighter dodged and weaved through the storm. Krixval realized that the ship's ugly exterior had been deceiving him. This was not a simple trading vessel. This was something that had been built or rebuilt for exactly this kind of madness. The Varith flagship's hangar bay doors were open. The Varith had not bothered to close them because no enemy had ever been insane enough to fly directly into their ship. Captain Chun proved them wrong. The rusty bucket screamed into the hangar at full speed. At the last moment, its own cargo bay doors blasted open. 14,000 tons of mining explosives scattered into the Varith hangar like seeds thrown from a farmer's hand. Then the freighter flew out the other side of the hangar, barely fitting through a maintenance corridor meant for small repair drones. Behind it, the explosives detonated. The Varith flagship tore itself apart from the inside. The explosion was massive, a sun being born in the heart of the enemy fleet. 3 nearby warships were caught in the blast, their hulls crumpled and destroyed by the force of the detonation. Krixval stared at the screen in disbelief. 4 Varith warships destroyed in a single moment. It was impossible. It was insane. It was human. But the battle was not over. 13 Varith ships remained, and they were angry. The entire fleet turned its attention to the rusty bucket, which had emerged from the flagship's wreckage, trailing smoke and fire. The freighter was badly damaged. Pieces of its hull were missing, but it was still flying, and it was still broadcasting that terrible human music. "Chun to station." The captain's voice came over the communication channel. "How you doing over there, Ambassador?" Krixval found his voice somehow. We are watching. Captain, your ship is damaged. You need to retreat." "Retreat?" Chum laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "We're just getting started." "Hey, Martinez, how's the coffee maker?" A male voice answered, strained with effort. "Rerouted the power supply to the weapons array, Captain. We've got about 30% more output now." "You took power from the coffee maker?" Chun sounded offended. "This better be worth it. Ramirez, bring us around. Let's show these bugs how we do things back home." The damaged freighter turned back toward the Varth fleet. It should not have been able to fight. It should not have been able to fly. But it came at the enemy ships with the fury of a wounded animal that had decided to take its hunters down with it. The rusty bucket opened fire with everything it had. Modified mining lasers burned through Varth armor. Improvised missiles launched from tubes that had once been cargo ejection ports. The ship ducked and dodged through enemy fire, never staying still, never giving the Voreth a clean target. And all the while, the human crew laughed. They shouted at each other over the communication channels, making jokes, giving insults, celebrating every hit. They were going to die, and they knew it. But they were going to die fighting, and that seemed to make them happy. 5 more Voreth ships fell to the freighter's desperate assault. Some were destroyed outright. Others were crippled, left drifting in space with their systems dead. The Varth fleet was in chaos, unable to coordinate against an enemy that fought with no regard for its own survival. Then the rusty bucket took a direct hit. The plasma bolt struck the freighter's engine section. The explosion sent the ship spinning through space, trailing fire and debris. Emergency systems screamed warnings across every frequency. The ship was dying, but it was not dead yet. "Engines gone," Torres reported, his voice tight with pain. "We're venting atmosphere from multiple decks. Life support is failing. Casualties?" Chun asked. "Everyone's hurt, Captain. But everyone's alive." "Good enough. Ramirez, can you get us to that cargo bay door? The one on the station?" "Maybe. It's going to be rough." "Do it. Everyone else, grab something to hold on to. This is going to hurt." The rusty bucket made one last desperate maneuver. Using its remaining thrusters, it limped towards Station Oryx 7. The Voreth fired after it, but their shots went wide, thrown off by the chaotic movement of the dying ship. The freighter crashed through the station's emergency cargo bay doors and came to a stop in a shower of sparks and screaming metal. Behind it, the Varth fleet hesitated. They had lost 8 ships to a single freighter. 5 more were crippled. Only 4 remained fully operational. And the Galactic Council fleet was finally showing up on long-range sensors. The Varth made a decision. Their remaining ships turned and fled into faster-than-light travel, abandoning the hunt. Station Oryx 7 was saved. Krixval ran to the cargo bay. He had to see for himself. He had to know that the humans were alive. The cargo bay was a disaster. Broken metal lay everywhere. Smoke filled the air, making it hard to breathe. Emergency crews rushed past Krixval, carrying fire suppression equipment and medical supplies. The wreckage of the rusty bucket lay in the center of the bay, barely recognizable as a ship anymore. Krixval pushed through the chaos toward the wreck. His 4 hearts were pounding so hard he could feel them in his throat. The humans had to be alive. After everything they had done, they could not be dead. He found them in what remained of the cargo hold. 11 humans, battered and bleeding, sitting in a circle on the buckled floor. They had set up emergency lighting around themselves and were passing around cards. playing some kind of game. Captain Chen looked up when Krixval entered. Her face was covered in blood from a cut on her forehead. Her left arm hung at a wrong angle, clearly broken. But she smiled when she saw him. "Ambassador," she said, "pull up a crate." Torres was just about to lose all his credits to me. I was not, Torres protested. He had bandages wrapped around his chest and was breathing carefully, like his ribs hurt. "I have an excellent hand." "You always say that. You always lose." Krixval stood frozen in the doorway, staring at them. These humans had just destroyed 8 warships. They had charged alone into an enemy fleet with no hope of survival. They had saved 3,000 lives. And now they were playing cards. "Captain Chen," Krixval said slowly, "you are injured. Your crew is injured. Your ship is destroyed. And you are playing games? What else would we do?" Chen asked. She tossed a card onto the pile in the center. "Medical teams are on their way. Sitting here, worrying about it, won't help. Might as well pass the time. But you almost died. You should have died. No one survives what you just did." Chen shrugged with her good shoulder. "We're humans. We're hard to kill. Also, we're lucky. Mostly we're lucky." Ramirez, the pilot, laughed from her spot in the circle. Her leg was splinted and elevated, and she had a black eye that was swelling shut. "Lucky? Captain, you flew us into an exploding ship. That's not luck. That's insanity." "Same thing," Chen said. "Your turn, Torres." Krixval moved closer and sat down on a piece of debris. His legs did not seem capable of holding him up anymore. The medical teams would arrive soon. The refugees were safe. The crisis was over, but he still had questions. "Captain," he said, "I need to understand something. Earlier today, you refused to help. You said this was not your problem. You were going to leave us to die. What changed?" The card game paused. The humans exchanged looks with each other. Something passed between them, some unspoken communication that Krixval could not read. Chen set down her cards. She looked at Krixval with those metal gray eyes, and for a moment she seemed very tired. Very old. Like someone who had seen too much and fought too long. "I've been flying these stars for 30 years, she said. "I've seen a lot of bad things. War, famine, plague, you name it. You can't fix everything. You can't save everyone. If you try, you'll burn yourself out in a year. So you learn to pick your battles. You learn to walk away from things that aren't your problem." She paused and looked at her hands. They were rough, scarred, the hands of someone who worked hard for everything she had. "But there are lines," she continued. "Rules that even people like me live by. You don't hurt people who can't fight back. You don't target civilians. You don't kill people who are running away. And you never, ever hurt children." Her voice hardened on the last words. "Those Vorath crossed every line I have. They shot at escape pods full of families. They killed kids for fun. For flavor." She spat the last word like it tasted bad. "After that, I didn't have a choice. Some things you can't walk away from. Some things make themselves your problem, whether you like it or not." Krixval thought about this. It made sense in a strange way. Humans were not heroes. They were not saviors. They were just people, trying to survive in a cruel galaxy. But they had rules. Hidden lines that could not be crossed. And when those lines were crossed, they transformed into something else entirely. "The Galactic Council will want to honor you," Krixval said. "You saved 3,000 lives. You destroyed 8 warships. You drove away the Vorath. They will want to give you medals and titles." Chen waved her good hand dismissively. "Don't want medals. Don't want titles. Just want a new ship and enough credits to repair my crew." And coffee. The coffee on this station is terrible. Torres laughed. Then Winston held his ribs. Captain, the medical team took our coffee maker. They said it was a fire hazard. It was a fire hazard. That's what made it good. The medical teams arrived a few minutes later. They took the human crew away for treatment over the protests of Captain Chun, who insisted she was fine and just needed some rest. Krixval watched them go, still trying to process everything that had happened. 3 weeks later, a new ship arrived at Station Oryx 7. It was a gift from the Galactic Council, a replacement for the Rusty Bucket. It was sleek and modern, armed with actual military-grade weapons. Fully equipped with the latest technology. Captain Chun took one look at it and complained that it was too clean. She renamed it the Rusty Bucket too, scratched up the hull herself with a welding torch, and departed within a day. Her crew went with her, all of them healed and ready for whatever came next. They did not say goodbye. They did not ask for thanks. They simply left, heading back out into the stars to continue their lives. Krixval returned to his duties as station administrator. The refugees were eventually transported to safer worlds. New people arrived to take their place. Life went on as it always did, but Krixval never forgot what he had witnessed. He wrote a report about the incident and submitted it to the Zithrani Collective. The report was flagged as essential reading for every diplomat, ambassador, and military commander in their territory. It spread from there to other species, other governments, other organizations. The report became famous throughout the galaxy. It was short, but its message was clear. Humans are not aggressive by nature. They do not seek out conflict. They are content to live their lives, pursue their goals, and ignore the problems of others. They will say, "Not my problem," with complete sincerity and walk away from almost any situation. But they have lines, invisible boundaries that exist somewhere deep within their psychology. These lines are different for each human and impossible to predict. Cross one of these lines and everything changes. The human who would not lift a finger to save a planet will burn down an empire to avenge a child. The human who ignored a genocide will wage a one-person war against anyone who hurts an animal. There is no logic to it. There is no pattern. There is only the line and what happens when you cross it. Recommendation: do not harm the helpless in human-occupied space. Do not target civilians. Do not hurt children or animals. Do not attack those who are fleeing. And if a human tells you that you have made something their problem, run. Run as fast as you can and do not stop. Because once a human decides to care, nothing in the galaxy can stop them. Krixval added a personal note at the bottom of the report. It was a quote from Captain Chun, something she had said to him before she left. "We're not heroes, Ambassador. We're just humans. We're lazy, selfish, and we don't care about most things. But there's always something that matters enough to fight for. Something that makes us get up off our chairs and do something stupid and dangerous. The trick is not crossing the line that makes us find it." The report spread across the galaxy. And slowly, carefully, species began to change their behavior around humans. Not out of respect, exactly. Not out of friendship, out of fear. Because the galaxy had learned a valuable lesson about humanity. They were not dangerous because they were strong. They were not dangerous because they were smart. They were dangerous because they could not be predicted. They were dangerous because their apathy could transform into rage without warning. They were dangerous because once they cared, they would not stop. Humans were terrifying. And the worst part was, they did not even know it. They just drank their coffee, played their cards, and waited for someone to cross the line.